Thank you so much, Saxton. It's great to be with everybody today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started here in just a second. Also, I have to put at least one person on the spot. I see Paul Lease has signed in. Is that the same Paul Lease that I know from my college coaching days?
Yes, absolutely, Ben. Good to see you,
Ah,
mate.
great to see you too, pal. Thanks a ton for coming on.
No worries. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome, man. I hope we can catch up after this. Can everybody see? Well, I can't see anybody. Anybody who's uh, wanting to come off, put on their FaceTime, that would be awesome. Staring at a lot of black screens right now, but that's okay. Not mandatory. Okay, I've got a couple thumbs up from people that can see the screen. So great. Welcome. I've been so excited to give this talk and spend time with everybody since Saxton and I addressed it or started talking about this topic several months ago. And Saxton, as always, thank you so much for the support from BSN and the opportunity to come on and share with everybody today. I just want to start with a quick story. It's funny because Paul Lease, my buddy, is on this call, and this story has to do with Furman. And the year was 2010. I was a college soccer coach at Georgia Southern University. Go Eagles, now and forever. And we were playing against a very good Furman team, and we were playing at home. And we went into overtime 1-1. It was my first year with the program, which is also my alma mater. And I noticed when we went into overtime, we did what a lot of team sports do. You bring it in, you put your arms around each other, you try and hype everybody up. But one thing I will always remember from that is no eyes were up, all heads were down. And I thought to myself in this moment, uh-oh. I didn't want to read into it too much, but my gut feeling was correct. And it didn't take long where we lost that game 2-1. And I think most, if not all of us, have been there before in sports where the players that we coach, the teams that we lead, or maybe even ourselves at time experience these moments of doubt or sometimes called crises in confidence. I have had many players that I've coached that have said, Coach, don't pick me to take a penalty kick. I've had players miss penalty kicks and say, don't ever pick me again to do that. And I've even had Major League Baseball players that I work with tell me, hey, man, sometimes when the phone rings in the bullpen, I am praying that they don't call my name. And I'd be willing to bet that most, if not all of us, can share similar stories where we're discussing the individual or collective belief of the athletes that we work with. What I'd like to take a quick moment to do is ask you all, if you would, to put in the chat what is what gives you belief in your own abilities as a coach? If you would take a moment and put that in the chat. Question was, what gives you belief in your own abilities as a coach? Thanks, buddy, for going first. We got my preparation, personal experience. Yep. Personal and past experiences, relationship, knowledge, experience, training and preparation. Great. I also wanted to ask, and feel free to keep answering that one. I also wanted to ask the second question, which is, what are some of your current beliefs about how self-belief is established? What do you already know about this? I'll say the question one more time. Yeah, here we go. Past successes. Thank you, Walter. Self-belief, past successes and preparation. Self-awareness we have for ourselves, how we communicate with players, building confidence. Yes, these are great. Thank you. So let's dig in a little bit here. I want to just give a really quick background about me. Like all of you here, I have spent some time in the arena, so to speak. I spent the first 12 years of my professional career as a college soccer coach at a couple Division I schools. That's how I met Paul along the way. And that was something I did all the way until 2014, when after completing a master's degree in sport and performance psychology, I went and did full-time sport and performance psychology work with 75th Ranger Regiment, working with special operations forces. And then from there, I spent 5 years working in Major League Baseball at all levels, from minor leagues to the major leagues, and then ultimately across the whole department, looking at what are the needs of all of our athletes, from our rookies all the way up to our veterans. And then currently, I run my own practice, which is called Ready, Set, Resilient. And a lot of my clients are MLS, also some USL. This is my 10th year doing full-time sports psychology work, and I have come up with, this is my philosophy. I truly believe that all of you on this call today are already the sports psychologists for your teams. You're addressing things like motivation, inspiration, cooperation, commitment, goal setting, athlete identity. I mean, every day if I talk to each of you one-on-one, you could probably give me so many stories of where you were coaching less tactics and less technique, and a lot more social, emotional, and psychological concepts of sport. And I believe you're the sports psych for your team. And my ultimate goal is, I want to make you a great one. There's just a quick question for the group. Please, again, put this into the chat. What do you think are the differences? We're here today to talk about self-efficacy. This is based in self-efficacy theory, which has been around for over 4 decades, created by a psychologist, Albert Bandura. Some of you may have heard of him. But I wanted to ask, starting off in the chat, what do you think are the differences between self-confidence and self-efficacy? Scott, I'm going to put you on the hot seat for a second. Can you say a little bit more?
In the chat.
No, tell the group.
I think self-confidence is more believing in yourself, believing you have the ability, where efficacy is knowing that you have that ability to go out and perform.
Yes. Thanks for expanding upon that. Monique, can you say a little bit more about what you put in the chat?
Sure. I believe it's one thing to have confidence, but knowing how to manage what you know and knowing how to manage what you know you need to get done is completely different. So it's really about how well you manage the things that you have to have the confidence for.
So I'm hearing like some specific lists and tasks when you talk about managing the things. Am I on the right track?
Yeah.
Okay. And thanks to both of you. I put you on the hot seat. You do that to your players every day anyway. So sometimes it's good to put ourselves in their shoes. Doug, talk about the shelf life, so to speak, of confidence.
Players can have confidence built by their coach, can come extrinsically from other motivators. Self-efficacy is, in my mind, is more setting goals and achieving those goals.
Thank you. Yeah. Everybody, I'm really excited. We're all circling the right responses on this. Kind of to give you maybe the textbook or researched answer. Think of self-confidence being more broad. It might not be applied to any specific task or goal or achievement. But if I asked you to tell me about different players, athletes that you have, you might lump some of them to a general self-confidence category. It's broad. It's not specific to any certain task or skill. It might be more about their personality and the way that they carry themselves. Thus, the picture on the screen of the woman, shooting the gun of like, I got this. Self-efficacy is more task related. It is the belief that a certain skill or goal or task can be accomplished. So it's not broad, it's not general. It's, can I hit this serve? Can I hit this free throw? From a collective effort, it's, do we have what it takes as a team to be successful tonight? So just to try and simplify that, efficacy is more task related. What am I trying to achieve skill wise, individually or as a team? Confidence is more general or broad. Two things I'd really like to get across today. The first is I want to talk about 4 scientifically backed ways that we can develop self-efficacy. What's great about this, and I'm not surprised at all, many of you in the chat with the first question or the second question, how is this developed? And I saw so many words like experience and preparation. Many of you are already doing these things. It's my goal we can bring maybe more awareness so that we would do it more by design with ourselves and our athletes to really level up that belief. And then the second is to discuss how we can apply it. I know every time I come on to one of these, when I'm in your seat, I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks for the academic background and the big nerd alert, Freakley, but I'm about to go to practice in 30 minutes. And how do I bake this into my team environment? So I've put together a couple ideas as well that I hope you can kind of take in terms of practical strategies and activities. And I've got those at the end. Why do I do it at the end? Because, some of you might leave early and now you're thinking, oh, I better hang around if I want the good stuff. So it is recorded. So for people that do need to leave, no problem. So the first way that we can and this is the most effective way, backed up by research, of all the 4 ways to develop self-efficacy. This is done through mastery experiences. You see on the photo there, it's the swimmer, arms all the way out, fully committing to that stroke. It's the basketball player that has the belief that I can hit this jump shot. It's the volleyball player, even with 2 blockers there, to say, I'm going to spike this. Kind of my own, verbiage for that you all have heard. It's not new, is been there, done that. And of all of the ways that self-efficacy has been researched to be built in athletes, it is these mastery experiences, or another term for it is performance accomplishments. You're all familiar with visualization, and the difference between visualization and performance accomplishments or mastery experiences. Visualization is more about looking forward. What do I want to do? How do I want to imagine myself performing today? This is about looking backwards, thinking about all of the times in my life as an athlete where I was under pressure to perform, game scenarios, even practice scenarios, when I can say to myself, yes, at full speed, under pressure, I was able to be successful in this moment. So that is the number one way to develop self-efficacy. And I kind of want to pause here because earlier, so many of you, when I said, where does your belief come from as a coach? So many of you talked about experience, experience, experience. I know I might put some people on the spot here, but is anybody in their coaching journey currently in their own terms of mental preparation on either for practice or for games? Is anybody doing any version of this, going back and revisiting what might be a feel reel, and remembering some of the times you just performed at your best as a coach? Doug, you're nodding your head, and I can only see you and Scott, so I'm calling on you.
I'm not afraid to show my face, I guess. Yeah, I've done it multiple times just on past victories and stuff like that. I'm actually a wrestling coach, and so just, you know, individuals and team accomplishments. I actually have pictures all over my wall, and my current students come in and look at those championships and stuff like that all the time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Scott, how about you? If you don't mind sharing, is this something that you do as well?
It is, one of the things that I try to do to inspire, the team, specifically newcomers, is, at the beginning of the season when we are, have our first, interest meeting and people come out, athletes, is, I'll wear my, championship rings from college to show them, like, this is what we're fighting for.
Thank you. So you've got a symbol that you take out there that connects you to that time where you did it. Yeah. So I just want to say one more time, you know, if you were only to pick one from everything that we talk about today, and I'll go over the next three in just a second, the more we can, especially with our pre-performance routines with our players, thinking game day -1 or meet day -1, or even on the day they compete. If we're concerned that, you know, there may be that doubt, that possible crisis of confidence, the research suggests that there is a correlation between going back and revisiting that own internal highlight reel and the effect that would have in our efficacy, our self-efficacy, that we can accomplish the task in that upcoming moment. And, you know, when I'm working one-on-one with an athlete, one of my favorite questions to ask, and you all might be doing this too, tell me about your best performance ever. Tell me everything about it, every single thing about it. Even, you know, that morning you woke up, the night before. And I want them to, I don't want a movie trailer version. I want them to really talk me through, okay, here's what was going on. Here, this is me in my life. Here's what practice was like leading up to it. And they walk me through. And what I've noticed is when I do that, and then I ask a follow-up question, what are you feeling right now? You can only imagine the state, the psychological state that puts them in. And if they've been having some anxiousness about performance, I can then ask them, you know, a follow-up question. Hey, you know, you said earlier you were kind of a level 7 or 8 about tomorrow's game. Where are you right now? Where do you think it's going to be? Oh, it's a 3 or 4. Why? You know, well, it's gone way down. Well, why? No, because I'm remembering I've been there. I've done that. And these are conversations that we can have all the time with our players. You know, I think one of the challenges that we face is when an athlete comes to us and if they've got some real trust, we might be able to sense some of that doubt, or they might even say, I'm not sure. And the way we were coached, we would say things like, you just got to believe in yourself, or don't worry about that. And it just doesn't work. If we say, don't worry, whatever the worry was, now it's bigger. That which we resist persists. So let's flip it. Let's ask them, I hear that you're worried. Now we're affirming the fear or concern. And maybe we go back to that. You ever felt this way before? Yeah. You ever felt this way around some of your best performances? Yeah. What's that tell you? So maybe we avoid the pushing, hey, let's fix it. And we go to a pulling and we ask them to tell us about some of those best performances. The second way is through something called verbal persuasion. Verbal persuasion. And just my own kind of reminder for this, I wouldn't tell coaches, hey, use verbal persuasion. I would talk with coaches like you all about how powerful your words are. There is no more trusted source in your environment for that source of self-efficacy between than the relationship between an athlete and you. You all know this and you all have felt this. The words that we use with our players has the ability to make them feel like they are on top of the mountain and the complete opposite end of the spectrum on that. And I get it, depending on the level of competition, sometimes there is need for both types of language. Specifically in the context of today, when you specifically and objectively affirm your players, when you go to them and give them the words they need to hear, if they are experiencing some doubt, this can lessen the grip that doubt has on them. As long as it is from a trusted source like yourself, especially if there's a strong relationship between the coach and the athlete, then the words that coach uses can have a massive impact on that athlete's ability to achieve that upcoming task. When I was working with a college soccer program last summer, in one of the group sessions, one of the players said, well, if we make a mistake in a game, then whoever makes that mistake should have to run extra in practice. And I was like, okay, if we do that, then the next time that same game situation arises, that player is going to say to themselves, I'm not going to do that again because I don't want to run. And now we're not willing to trust. Now we're not willing to risk. So we flipped the script and talked about, let's say you went to practice the next day. What would that player need to hear from her teammates or from his teammates to make sure they can get back to that stable sense of self-belief? Bottom line, thinking about the language that we are using can have an extremely performance enhancing impact on athletes, especially as we get closer to game time. I'm always curious about this, especially in soccer. The longer I've been around pro sports, I'm pretty convinced that not all athletes need the same words from their coach. Some may need more tactical instruction, more instruction that is role related about how they'll do their job well. And others need coaching that goes straight to the heart or straight to the head. And my favorite thing to do is to ask players that I work with, what are the words that you need to hear the most? Because if they're coming from them and then the coach is saying it back to them, the chance of that landing is much higher because it's authentic. So let's be thinking about the words that we're using, knowing that will have a big impact on our athletes' belief. The third is mastery experiences. Oh, did I already say that one? Yeah. Sorry. The third is vicarious experience. Tech check right there. So, this is like Be Like Mike. We remember those commercials from the 80s. But vicarious experience is putting ourselves in the shoes of others. I chose the photos here. The middle one, I think about how many youth athletes, again, I'll use a soccer example, that I see standing on soccer fields like Ronaldo, the soccer player, before he takes a free kick. He's got the wide stance, the chest is puffed out. these are examples where athletes are watching YouTube and seeing how the pros do it. The challenge with that is that if the skill gap is too big, it may not have the desired impact that we would want it to. So my suggestion to coaches, for example, is for athletes to be paired up in practice and training situations where they can watch each other demonstrate different skills or practice different techniques. And so I'll use Scott as an example. If he and I are teammates and I'm maybe not quite sure that I'm up to the task with a certain activity, but I see him go first and I see him execute that, that can enhance my belief that I can do it too. And so questions like, what did Scott do well? Or what did you notice about how Ryan did that right there? Now the athlete's mind is thinking about what they did to execute. We're not comparing our athletes to each other, but we're giving them specific opportunities to watch another athlete be successful for the purposes of borrowing that confidence. When I used to run youth soccer camps, and this is for really young kids, but what I would do was introduce a skill really early on, a dribbling skill. And then after about 30 seconds, I'd have them all kneel down. And I would say, who would want to show the whole group what they just learned? And as you can imagine, so many hands would go up. And what was so great is no matter how they accomplished it or didn't, we would praise the individual in front of the whole group for the effort. We'd let them know if they were on the right track. And if I asked again, who else would like to try, even more hands would go up. They were borrowing confidence in that moment. They were looking around to other kids their age of similar skill levels and saying, well, they're trying it in front of the group and I can try it in front of the group as well. Vicarious experience is about kind of living through others and saying to ourselves, if they can do it, so can I. The fourth and final, oh, sorry, I keep going backwards. I apologize. The fourth and final is about physiological and emotional states. And I just want to pause here when you hear that term, physiological and emotional states, and I'll ask you to engage the chat again. When it comes to self-efficacy, increasing the belief that we can accomplish something, what do you think physiological and emotional states have to do with that? Put that in the chat. I see sleep, hunger, depression. Buddy talking about some of the maybe more negative impacts or needs and how that could impact belief. How's your day? Positive, negative experience. Emotional state can act as a distraction. Absolutely. If the focus is internal, Scott, that may take away from that external focus that's more likely to produce the outcomes that we want. Great. So a couple things on this here. So physiological and emotional states refers to really what the mind and body is telling us about our performance. And it includes some of the methods that we can use to change the relationship or reinterpret the relationship that we're having with those feelings. For example, if I asked all of you right now to tell me, most of you, if not all of us, have heard of Conor McGregor. And if I said, tell me about the way he enters a ring, you could all share the chest has just gone from probably a 39-inch chest to about a 59-inch chest. He's puffing it out. The arms are out. And no matter what he's feeling on the inside, externally, he's showing something different, even if there is some doubt there. Physiological and emotional states are you all have heard of things like fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the body telling us, I'm about to go and do something. And when we interpret these signals as good, then that can have a facilitative effect on performance. When athletes learn, I'm probably always going to feel this way. My heart is going to beat faster. My mind is really going to speed up. And it might even tell me things that are critical. It might even tell me things that make me doubt. But when I'm working with athletes, we work a lot around the role acceptance plays in this, that to get to do what you do, especially at this pro level, it's going to take some getting used to the body telling you every time you go out there, okay, here we go. Heart rate speeding up, mind is speeding up, butterflies in the stomach. But instead of saying, well, this means I'm not going to perform well, or I'm not sure how this is going to go, we can reinterpret it to, yeah, this feels right. This goes along with the territory. When I worked with the Army Rangers, the first stanza of the Ranger Creed was recognizing that I volunteered as a Ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession. So, like it or not, funky feelings and some doubts, it comes along with the territory. And so just normalizing that with with our athletes and learning from them, hey, before you compete, are you the type of person that needs to amp themselves up? I see guys in the locker room, they really like they try and have a good time, they try and laugh to get some of that nervous energy. You see players, using a soccer example, that'll play soccer tennis in a locker room before a game to get out some of that nervous tension. You also see athletes that are sitting quietly by themselves. They don't need more amping up. They actually might need some coming down because they're naturally a little bit amped up when they perform. So helping them understand that can be the best way to improve that relationship with their body and mind and emotions before they compete. Okay, I promised you that I would give some practical strategies today, so I'd like to do that as well. So the first that I wanted to talk to you about is the verbal persuasion piece. And so for this one here, one of the exercises that I've done with lots of teams is a sticky note exercise. And you go around, you give all of your players a whole pack of sticky notes, and you say to them, you're going to go around to all your teammates and you're going to talk, you're going to write down on their back, you know, like you could call the exercise, I got your back, or having your back. And you would have them write on there all of the great things about Scott, all the great things about AJ, all the great things about Megan. And when that's done, that player has a whole stack of things that most likely they've never been told before by their teammates. And from a social cohesion standpoint and affirming each other, this exercise can have a lot of power. True story. I did this with a group of executives 2 years ago. And one of the executives, I was not part of the exercise, but he still came up to me and slapped one of the sticky notes on my back. And I still have it on my computer to this day. It's right here. There's a hole in it. You can barely see the writing, but it's there. And every time I see that, it gives me that little shot of belief. This exercise is really easy to set up. You don't need much, and you can do it in a couple rounds. You can talk about from a skill perspective or athlete perspective, what is it that makes Mike great? What is it that makes Ricky great? From a teammate perspective, what is it that makes Bob or Amy great, right? These are the things you can do from a social perspective, from a performance perspective. You can choose a couple different rounds to do that. And I would put yourself in the exercise as well. It'd be cool to see what your players say about you. And then that's something as coaches we can keep for when we need to refer to it. The second is let them make their own highlight reel or feel reel. We probably all do film review with our athletes, but this is different. This isn't to address areas of improvement and areas of performance. This is to specifically show them, look at what you did right there. Look at you. I know one of my friends who works in Major League Baseball full time. He spends an insane amount of time every week making these for players in the organization, and he will send these to the players through text, where they can go back and revisit their performance and accomplishments. And so this is something that you can do, or you can ask your athletes. You could also do a writing assignment where I want you to write about your best game ever. Or from a collective efficacy standpoint, I want you to write about our best performance ever. And that would be, and then you can have the team read that back to each other and share some of the qualities and behaviors that were showing up in those instances. The third, I talked about this a little bit earlier, is choose different players in your training environments to model different skills. I know coming up as a coach, I was taught that if you didn't demo things yourself, choose one of the best players to demonstrate it, to paint the picture. And most of the time, I would say I agree with that when it comes to getting it right and giving our players a mental model of how we want to execute. In the context of self-efficacy, I might pick players that are not at the top of the skill level to demonstrate different techniques, different skills, so that other players even below that can see, okay, it's not just the top player that's being called on here. And if I continue to work, if I continue to give effort toward my craft, coach might be calling on me to demo some of these things as well. So it's about thinking about, who are we going to have demo in front of the group? And then from a physiological and emotional states, I talked about this a little bit earlier. Do the players need a little bit of the Conor McGregor, helping them understand that if they're a little bit lower energy, or maybe some anxiousness, that, bigger smiles, joking with some teammates, music in the locker room. You see, as they get closer to game time, some athletes are jumping up and down. They're getting really excited. Who needs that? And who might need more dialing it back a little bit? One of the pro soccer teams that I work with, on game day, I do a session with them. It's completely optional, and we call it mental activation. Basically, it's mindfulness. It's 10 minutes, with 3 or 4 of those minutes specifically dedicated to longer, slower, deeper breaths, engaging the parasympathetic nervous system just a little bit. And after we've done that, then I'll guide them through a little bit of language around tapping into their strengths. What are the things that make you great? What are the things that you've worked a lifetime to developing that have made you a pro athlete at this level? And this has a way of helping the athlete form a different relationship with any of those nerves that are going to show up. One of the things I do want to highlight right here is that when we do mindfulness, it's not to get rid of any of these feelings, but it's just to notice that they're there. I thought you brought up a great point earlier, Scott, when you talked about if the athlete is too emotionally focused, it could take away from that external task-related focus that we want. Mindfulness is a way of really just dropping in on ourselves, and noticing, what am I feeling in this moment? What's my body feeling? What's my mind doing? And it's just normalizing that, yeah, this comes with the territory. If you want to go even deeper, there are several different scales or instruments that you could give to your team. From an individual perspective, there's the self-efficacy questionnaire for athletes. This is a validated scale that you could find. You can give this to your performers, fill it out, and turn it into a one-on-one discussion about what impact this has on their belief. And there's also a collective efficacy questionnaire for sports. There's some newer research that looks at the whole team approach to how we as a group look at our ability to achieve big things together. So those are just two. There are several more, but I wanted to give a couple examples on that. Can't believe how fast time flies. Just wanted to finish out with this. This is from really recent research. So pre-event or pre-game, pre-competition self-efficacy does not always correlate. We know this because we can do all of these things and then still go out and not perform. However, there's enough evidence out there saying it can have a meaningful impact. And as coaches, we should work at maximizing those four elements that we talked about today. I will pause here, and I am happy to take any questions if the group has them. And we can probably best to put those in the chat, right, Saxton?
Yes, that would be great. But I don't see any currently. We'll give people another minute or two, see if they type any. But thank you, Ben. That was a great presentation. A lot of quality information for all of our attendees and coaches to take back to their athletes and implement to their programs. So thank you very much again. And like I said, this is recorded. So if people missed anything or want to go back, we will have this recording ready for you guys shortly, and you will get notified via email with the link to watch. Monique put in the chat, thanks for your time. Mike said, are there any resources you can recommend?
Mike, I would look, I mean, depending on how deep you want to go, Albert Bandura is the founder of self-efficacy theory, and any type of just quick Google source on self-efficacy in sport. You could also look at, depending on if you're individual sport or team sport. I'm really interested right now in the collective efficacy. I didn't get into that today. I kind of chose the individual performer, but really interested in team sports about that power. So I think nothing specific offhand other than Google searching the theory itself and how much that's been investigated over the last 40 plus years.
Awesome. And Scott said, thank you. Great information. At what point on game day do you do the game day mindset 10-minute routine?
I do that typically 2.5 hours before kickoff, and I've pulse checked several of the guys on the team and said, hey, is this the right time? I'm constantly curious about, should that happen closer to game time, further away? Currently, we're 2.5 hours before. I can also say this, that I have in the past pre-recorded scripts on my phone and sent them to the coach to put in the group chat, which has then allowed the athlete to listen to it whenever they want, leading up to game time. So I like that, the autonomous nature of that. But currently, I'm 2.5 hours prior to kickoff.
Awesome. And then another Scott that we have joining us today said, what is a way to help those athletes that struggle with self-confidence despite working with them on it?
Well, you keep going. My whole belief as a sports psych is that we get better at what we practice, and kind of sports psych 101 in my first class ever, they reminded us this is not a quick fix, but it can change. This behavioral change around the self-belief that a player can achieve something is something that's got to constantly be revisited. And so as cliche as it sounds, we get better at what we practice. So the more we come back to these moments, these conversations, the more we work on these 4 different ways to boost self-efficacy, the likelihood that it's going to be improved is significant.
Awesome. And then Paul asked, for college athletes, how can we help them to become more resilient and self-driven?
Top of hand, Paul, I think about individual goal setting. The source of a goal has a lot to do with motivation. So if it's set from the coach, less autonomy, set from the player, more autonomy. When I worked at the Toronto Blue Jays, when we would draft a player, we would give them a goal and ask them to give us a goal. So we had identified areas we'd like that player to improve on his journey to the major leagues. And we also asked that player, you tell us. It's more likely motivation is going to go up if I'm setting a goal that's intrinsic to me. So I'd want individual goals for all of my players. The resilience piece, I think about this a lot from my coaching days, man. And my dissertation focus and all of my mental toughness work now is around something called acceptance and commitment training. And if we had more time, we'd do a whole other Saxon, maybe that's what we need to do our next webinar on. But Paul, there are 6 psychological skills in acceptance and commitment training that have proven to promote resilience. Goal setting or committed action is one of those. The others are things like contact with the present moment. You know, when I've got 5 minutes left and I'm losing 1-0, instead of my brain telling me I'm going to lose, I'm able to stay present. I'm able to stay task focused. Other things in there are the role of acceptance and also the relationship we have with our thoughts. So acceptance and commitment training is kind of the first place that I would look to when trying to develop resilience.
Awesome.
Tim,
And then
Tim,
Tim
the message was that I'm good at leadership development. That's what we were working on that day.
great. And then Walter said, when it comes to winning the championship, what is key when you haven't done it before?
Oh man, great question. That for me is like the Pygmalion effect. I don't know if you all have heard of that from Greek mythology, but if there's no legacy in place, Scott talked about having the ring, you know, which is that symbol of been there, done that. If there's no legacy effect there where we can look back to performance accomplishments or own collective efficacy, then it is constantly talking about all of the reasons that this team is capable. Again, I might go back to that letter writing exercise, you know, and maybe instead of, you know, what's been our best game ever, I might ask the team, what makes you think we have everything that it takes to go all the way? And hear them have to really put some thought into what do we have in front of us. The other thing is anytime we see moments of the right behaviors, even if it isn't getting us the outcomes that we want, if we're seeing evidence of the right collective behaviors, whatever that is, we have got to highlight that, even if the team loses or doesn't perform. Because I think the more we can share a mental model with our athletes about this is what right looks like, and if we keep doing this, it's going to happen. That's one of the best ways we can give them visual evidence that we're on the right track.
Great, thank you. And then Doug asked, How connected is self-efficacy to self-motivation?
Very, very. Intrinsic motivation, as we know, is the highest form. The self-determination theory talks about if we want to get the peak levels of motivation out of our people, then we need autonomy, competence or mastery, and relatedness. So if those things are there, if players are feeling like they've got strong social support from their coach, if players are feeling like they have plenty of opportunities to practice the skills they need in order to be successful on game day, those opportunities baked in to the practice environment and a strong relationship with their coach and teammates, all of those things would be very facilitative for a player to think, yeah, I can get this done. The inverse is also true. If I have not had opportunities to practice or compete, if I don't have that strong sense of verbal persuasion where I really believe when my coach is telling me I've got what it takes, then that self-efficacy may be diminished.
Great. Well, I think that was our last question we have of the day. I did drop in the link for RSR coaching in the chat. So if anyone would like to check out any additional services or schedule a meeting with Ben, that is how you can do so. It's also up on the screen as well if you want to take a quick screenshot. But thank you to everyone who stuck around today.